They believed their scales would reveal everything about me. I stood in that shed at dawn, while 3 white men measured my weight with instruments they trusted more than their own eyes. Their scales said one thing. Their lifting tests said another. I watched confusion replace their certainty, because I controlled what they measured by choosing what to reveal. I learned this from my uncle, who taught me that fire burns constantly but not uniformly, some parts active, some parts resting, but the whole appearing continuous. I applied that lesson to my own body. When they asked me to lift heavy weights, sometimes I lifted easily, and sometimes I struggled with the same load, not because my strength changed, but because my choice changed. I let them document me as adequate when I was actually capable. I let them record numbers that would follow me through every sale and assignment for years. I let them believe measurements equals truth when measurements only equals agreement about what to observe. An ally worked beside me using signals we developed, without words, rhythms, and timing, that let us rest while appearing to work, that let us preserve strength while seeming to spend it. This testimony belongs to the chronicles of Kofi, a living archive of truths that were never meant to survive. If you will stand as witness to what I preserved through strategy, mark this testimony so others may learn it. Signal that you recognize what they failed to measure. Speak below about the space between what can be documented and what remains your own. The man of science departed certain he had measured me completely. He carried ledgers full of numbers that said I was ordinary. Those numbers protected me for years because they assigned me to moderate labor, while the truly strong were pushed until they broke. I survived because they never knew my full capacity. I survived by understanding that the measured can choose what the measurement reveals. So I ask you now, when someone tries to measure your worth, who controls what they discover, the one holding the scale or the one standing on it? I stand in the yard at dawn and notice how their eyes measure me before their tools. 3 white men, 2 overseers, one holding a leather-bound book, one holding a wooden rod marked with lines, one holding nothing but authority. They walk along the line of us, 20 men standing in dirt, still cold from night. Our breath makes small clouds in the air. Their eyes move over bodies the way hands move over merchandise, assessing, calculating, reducing us to numbers before numbers are even written. The chalk marks on the wall behind us remind me of cattle tallies from my capture. I remember the holding pen at the coast. White marks on dark wood. Each mark a person sold. Each person a mark erased when the ship departed. The counting never stopped. We were counted onto ships, counted off ships, counted into pens, counted into fields, counted like grain or tools or anything else that can be owned and transported and used. I lower my gaze on purpose, already choosing when to appear smaller. The white man thinks lowered eyes mean submission. Sometimes he is right. Sometimes lowered eyes just mean strategy. I learned this during the crossing. Those who met the sailors' eyes were beaten more. Those who kept their heads down were beaten less. Not because they were more obedient, because they were less noticed. Invisibility is a kind of armor. The bell rings, moving us inside a large wooden shed. Inside the shed, I observe ropes hanging from beams, scales positioned near windows, and ledgers laid out on a wooden table like instruments of faith. The scales are different from any I have seen. Large, metal, with platforms big enough for a man to stand on. Weights stacked beside them in graduated sizes. The sight triggers a memory of gold weights in my uncle's shop, where numbers once meant trust. My uncle was a goldsmith. He kept weights made of bronze and stone. Each weight was precise. Each measurement was sacred. When he weighed gold for a customer, both parties trusted the scale because both understood the system. Numbers meant agreement. Numbers meant fairness. Numbers meant relationship between equals. Here numbers mean something different. Here numbers mean ownership, classification, control. I relax my shoulders to appear unremarkable. A command pushes us forward. Line up. Single file. Wait for your name. We arrange ourselves. I position myself in the middle. Not first, where I will be remembered. Not last, where I would stand out. Middle is invisible. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there. Small, smooth, heavy for its size. A piece from my uncle's workshop that I kept hidden during the crossing, during the market, during every inspection and search. It is proof I existed before this. Proof I understood measure and craft and precision before I was reduced to something measured. I hear whispers when the scale shifts more than expected beneath me. The man of science tall, thin, spectacles, catching lamplight gestures for me to step onto the platform. I comply. The scale drops. The needle swings. The weights rattle as he adds more to the opposite side to find balance. His eyebrows rise slightly. He adds another weight, then another. Two overseers lean closer, watching the needle settle. One whispers to the other. The words are too quiet to hear clearly, but the tone is surprise. The murmuring recalls elders' warning that curiosity can be as dangerous as anger. In my land, we were taught to fear both extremes. Anger draws attention, but curiosity draws investigation, and investigation can reveal what needs to stay hidden. I tighten my breathing to control my posture. I make myself smaller without obviously changing position. I let my shoulders curve forward slightly. I soften my knees. I redistribute weight from the balls of my feet to my heels. Small adjustments, invisible to casual observation, but enough to change how the scale reads my presence. The man of science steps closer, peering at the needle as it settles. He writes in his ledger, numbers and notes. His handwriting is precise, careful. The writing of someone who believes documentation equals truth. He asks me to lift a weighted sack, and I observe his confidence in the measurement. Lift this, he says, gesturing to a canvas sack on the floor. Hold it at shoulder height. I bend. I grip the sack. I feel the weight, perhaps 80 pounds. Heavy, but manageable. A flash of memory returns. My master craftsman teaching me never to show full strength at once. My uncle had an apprentice who was strong. Very strong. The apprentice liked to demonstrate his strength, lifting heavy molds with ease, carrying multiple loads at once. My uncle pulled him aside one day and said, "If they know your full capacity, they will demand it every time. If they think you are working at your limit when you are actually working at half, you protect yourself from their expectations." The apprentice did not listen. He continued showing his full strength. Within a year, he was injured from overwork and sent away. I lift only enough to satisfy, not astonish. I raise the sack to shoulder height slowly. I let my arms shake slightly. I hold it for 5 seconds, then lower it with visible effort. He marks his book and nods. Good. Next, I step aside. My breathing is controlled. My face shows nothing. I notice disappointment cross his face when the next man lifts the same weight more easily. The man of science watches the second worker raise the sack smoothly, hold it steady, lower it without strain. His pen moves across the page. More notes, more numbers, comparing, categorizing. Then his eyes return to me briefly, reassessing. Look, reminds me of traders bargaining down worth they feared. In my land, traders sometimes encountered goods that were too valuable, gold that was too pure, cloth that was too fine. When this happened, they would find flaws, invent problems, question quality, not because the goods were flawed, because acknowledging their true worth would require paying more than the trader wanted to spend. I see that calculation in his eyes now. He expected more from my body based on the scale. The lifting disappointed that expectation. Now he must reconcile the contradiction. I exaggerate effort, letting my knees bend slightly as I stand. I make the exhaustion visible. I breathe heavily for several seconds. I wipe my forehead, though I am not actually sweating. He waves me aside, already misjudging me. Return to your place. I comply. I have achieved something important. I have created confusion where there should be clarity. The white man thinks numbers are absolute. He is wrong. Numbers are only as reliable as what is being measured and who controls the measurement. Another man is tested and fails. Punishment follows quietly. The worker cannot lift the sack at all. He tries twice. His arms shake. The sack remains on the ground. The overseer steps forward. No words. Just a hand gripping the worker's shoulder. I push toward the door. The worker stumbles out. We hear the sound from outside. 3 strikes. Leather on flesh. Then silence. The sound triggers a memory of silence before betrayal. I remember the night before the slavers came to my village. Everything was normal. Cooking fires. Conversation. Children playing. Then morning arrived and the silence came first. The moment between sleep and waking when you sense something wrong before you know what it is. The betrayal followed the silence. The village elder who led them to us. The neighbors who pointed out which families had young men. The efficiency of violence made possible by cooperation. Silence is how betrayal announces itself. I hold my expression empty, conserving attention. I do not look toward the door. I do not react to the sound. I remain exactly as I was, unremarkable, compliant, forgettable. The observers adjust their plan, conferring in low voices before continuing. They return to me with heavier demands. Convinced inconsistency is error. You, the man of science says, pointing at me. Come here again. I approach the scale once more. Step on. Let me verify the first measurement. I comply. The scale settles. He checks the weights against the needle. He frowns slightly. The reading is higher than before, he mutters to himself. He adjusts his spectacles, rechecks the calibration. I have done nothing different, but his expectation has changed. Now he is looking for discrepancy instead of accepting data. I recall my mother teaching that patience bends stronger than force. She taught me this during planting season. Some boys wanted to force seeds into hard ground. They pushed. They struggled. They exhausted themselves. My mother showed me to wait for rain. Let the earth soften, then plant with ease. Force breaks, she said. Patience bends. What bends survives. I comply slowly, unevenly. When he asks me to lift the sack again, I take longer to grip it. I adjust my stance twice before lifting. I raise it only to chest height instead of shoulder height. I lowered it quickly, letting it thump on the ground. Confusion replaces certainty in his expression. He writes more notes, crosses out previous notes, writes again. The overseer leans over his shoulder. What does it mean? I am not certain. The man of science admits the measurements are inconsistent. That is when I know their flaw is faith in numbers alone. They believe the scale cannot lie. They believe strength is constant. They believe measurement reveals truth objectively. But they do not account for choice, for control, for the measured choosing how to be measured. I begin preparing to use that faith against them as I am sent back to the line. Night approaches with my strategy. Confirm. At labor the next day, I observe how exhaustion is expected on a schedule. Morning work is hardest. Afternoon work is steady. Evening work is slower. This pattern is assumed, demanded, enforced through pacing and supervision. The rhythm triggers memories of communal work back home. In my land, we worked in groups for large tasks. Building, harvesting, hunting. We sang to coordinate movement. We used rhythm to sustain effort without exhausting anyone too quickly. The songs had patterns, call and response, leader and chorus. The pattern kept everyone moving together, matching pace so no one person carried too much weight. Here, there are no songs, just commands, just observation, just punishment for those who slowed too much. I match my pace to others, never leading. When the man beside me swings his tool, I swing mine 1 second after. When he pauses to wipe his face, I pause 2 seconds later. When he drinks water, I drink after he finishes. I am synchronizing without standing out, becoming part of the rhythm rather than creating it. Attention drifts away from me, toward those who work too fast or too slow. The white man thinks supervision means control. He is wrong. Supervision means limited attention, distributed across many targets. The more you blend with expected patterns, the less you are actually seen. A private test is ordered after noon. The overseer pulls me from the work line. You, come. I follow him to a smaller shed away from the main group. The man of science waits inside with his ledgers and instruments. The confined space reminds me of the ship's hold. Wooden walls, low ceiling, Small windows, the air is still and warm, the smell of old wool and lamp oil. During the crossing, we were kept below deck in spaces like this. Barely room to sit, never room to stand. Bodies pressed against bodies, air thick with breath and fear. I learned in that space how to slow my breathing deliberately, how to calm my heart when panic tried to rise, how to make my body small and quiet and enduring. I use those lessons. Now I slow my breath. I soften my shoulders. I become smaller without obviously changing. The instruments wait on a wooden table. Weights, ropes, a measuring stick. A ledger open to a page, marked with my designation, not my name, just a number assigned at purchase. He asks again for strength. More forceful this time. Lift this barrel, he says, pointing to a wooden barrel filled with sand. Lift it overhead. The barrel is heavier than the sack, perhaps 120 pounds. I remember the elder's lesson. Stored power survives longer. An elder in my village was a wrestler. He competed in festivals against men from other villages. He was not the largest or the fastest, but he won more than he lost. Someone asked him his secret. He said, "I never show my full strength in the first match. I let my opponent believe he knows my limit. Then in the second match, when he is tired and confident, I show him he was wrong." The elder lived to be very old. Many of the stronger, faster wrestlers died young from injuries sustained proving themselves repeatedly. I fail slightly on purpose. I lift the barrel to waist height. I hold it there, arms shaking. I try to press it overhead but stop at shoulder height. My knees buckle slightly. I lower it heavily. I breathe hard. I step back. His frustration deepens. I see it in how he writes faster strokes, more pressure on the paper. Again, he says. I shake my head. "Cannot, sir. Too heavy." He makes a sound of disgust. Return to work. I leave the shed. I have given him exactly what I wanted to give him: doubt, confusion. The sense that his instruments and his theories are not revealing what he expected. They debate causes while I stand in the yard, waiting for dismissal. Through the shed door, still open, I hear their voices. The scale readings suggest significant capacity, but the practical demonstrations contradict. Perhaps the methodology requires adjustment, or perhaps the subject is malingering. The argument recalls traders arguing over prices I could hear, but not join. In my land, when traders disagreed about value, they would argue loudly in front of the goods being sold. Sometimes they were genuinely disagreeing. Sometimes they were performing for each other, establishing positions before negotiating. The seller could hear everything but could say nothing. The goods being sold had no voice in determining their worth. I am those goods now, present but silent, discussed but not consulted, measured but not allowed to explain what is being measured. I keep my eyes unfocused, staring at nothing. Their conclusions grow wrong with each exchange. They are building explanations that satisfy their expectations rather than accepting observations that contradict them. This is useful to me. An ally beside me in the work line taps twice on the post we are standing. Near top, tops off. Rhythmic. The tops remind me of coded rhythms from my youth. In my land, musicians used drum patterns to communicate across distances. Different rhythms meant different messages: danger, celebration, gathering, warning. During the crossing, some of us tried to use similar patterns, tapping on wood, on chains, on anything that would carry sound. Small messages: I am here. Are you alive? Do not give up. Most messages were caught and stopped, but some continued. And those of us who knew the patterns understood we were not completely alone. This tap feels similar, deliberate, meaningful. I wait 5 seconds, then tap once in response. Acknowledgement without commitment. The man does not look at me. I do not look at him, but the message has been exchanged. I adjust my effort exactly when watched. Least when the overseer turns to observe another section of workers, I increase my pace slightly. When he looks back, I have already returned to normal rhythm. The numbers skew over the course of the afternoon. Output is uneven. Some hours, I appear productive. Other hours, I appear slow. There is no pattern to predict. This creates the same confusion the man of science experienced. Inconsistency that defies explanation. The man of science repeats the test 2 days later to correct what he believes is error. I am pulled from work again. Same shed, same instruments, same ledger open to my number. We will measure again, he says. More carefully this time. I now comply more readily, contradicting his previous theory. When he asks me to lift the barrel, I lift it overhead smoothly. I hold it steady for 10 seconds. I lower it with control. His face shows confusion. He checks his notes, flips back through pages, compares numbers. This is significantly different from the previous demonstration, he says. More to himself than to me. I say nothing. I wait, he writes faster, missing the pattern that would explain everything. The pattern is simple. I control what he measures. When I want to appear weak, I am weak. When I want to appear strong, I am strong. The inconsistency is not Erida's choice, but he cannot see this because he does not believe I have choice. He believes measurement reveals truth about me. He does not consider that I might reveal truth selectively. Control shifts quietly from his instruments to my intention. I sense risk rising as his curiosity sharpens into obsession. He tests me again the next day, and the day after. Each time with different approaches, different weights, different tasks. Sometimes I perform well. Sometimes I perform poorly. I vary the pattern just enough to prevent prediction. A memory surfaces of hunters tracking the wrong prints. I remember a hunting party from my village that tracked an antelope for 2 days. They followed prints carefully. They moved quietly. They were certain of their target. On the 3rd day, they found a leopard instead. The leopard had been walking in the antelope's tracks deliberately, following the same path, placing its paws in the same impressions. The hunters barely escaped. They learned to look not just at prints, but at contacts, at broken branches, at disturbed earth, at signs that revealed intention behind movement. The man of science sees only prints. He does not see intention. I return to mediocrity without warning during the 5th test. He asks me to lift a moderate weight. I struggle. I fail. I apologize. His suspicion fractures into competing theories. Fatigue, illness, inconsistency in the instruments, measurement error. Every theory except the truth that I am controlling what he sees. They conclude fatigue explains everything by the end of the week. The subject shows variable performance consistent with recovery cycles. The man of science reads from his notes during a meeting I am forced to attend. Rest periods produce temporary strength increases. Sustained labor produces degradation. This is expected. The overseer nods. So, he's normal. Within documented ranges, yes. I am dismissed as solved, as understood, as categorized successfully despite all contradictions. I carry the truth silently back to the quarters that evening. The truth is simple. They measured my body, but not my will. They measured my strength, but not my choice. They measured outcomes, but not intention. The white man thinks measurement reveals nature. He is wrong. Measurement reveals only what is offered for measurement. Night gives cover to my satisfaction. I lie on my sleeping mat and feel something close to peace. Not victory. I have won nothing material, but I have protected something important. I have protected my agency, my capacity, my right to choose when and how I am known. They believe they understand me now. They believe their numbers tell truth. They are wrong, and that wrongness is a space where I can survive, where I can preserve strength they do not know I have, where I can make choices they do not know I am making. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there. I close my fingers around it and remember my uncle's words. Numbers only measure what they are designed to measure. Everything else remains unmeasured, and what remains unmeasured remains yours. I have kept what is mine. They measured me, but they did not find me. That is when I know I will survive this. Not through strength alone, not through compliance alone, through the gap between what they measure and what I am, through the space where their certainty meets my control, through the understanding that measurement is not truth. Measurement is just agreement about what to count. And I never agreed. An ally beside me exchanges signals during morning work the following week. The same man who tapped rhythms days ago. We work at Jason Rose now. Close enough to coordinate, but far enough to avoid obvious connection. He adjusts his grip on his tool when the overseer looks away. 2 fingers extended, then 3, then closed fist. The memory of coded labor in my village steadies me. In my land, we had signals for dangerous work, for lifting heavy stones, for moving logs, for coordinating when one mistake could crush someone. The signals were simple: how many people needed, which direction to move, when to lift, when to hold, when to release. We worked as one body with many hands, synchronized through signals invisible to those who did not know the language. I adjust my effort exactly when his signal indicates. When he extends 2 fingers, I slow my posse. When he extends 3, I maintain. When he closes his fist, I work faster. Over the course of the morning, our output varies together. When we are both watched, we appear normal. When attention drifts, we can... The pattern is invisible because it matches natural fluctuation. Everyone works slower when tired. Everyone works faster when supervised. Our variation hides inside expected behavior. By afternoon, I have expended less effort than appears in any record. I have worked and rested simultaneously. This is the lesson my uncle taught me about fire. Fire burns constantly but not uniformly. Parts of the flame are active. Parts are preparing. Parts are resting. But the whole fire appears continuous. We are learning to burn that way. Continuous in appearance. Strategic in reality. The man of science departs the plantation 2 weeks after his final test. I watch his wagon leave from the field. He carries his instruments and ledgers. His work here is complete. His measurements are documented. His conclusions are recorded. His departure is unsatisfied but certain. I see it in how he arranges his belongings carefully, methodically, like someone who has done what could be done but knows something remains unexplained. His certainty reminds me of my uncle's final lie. The morning the slavers came, my uncle told me everything would be fine. He said the traders just wanted to talk. He said I should go with the village elder to help carry goods for negotiation. His face was certain. His voice was steady. But his hands shook when he embraced me. He knew. He knew what was happening. He knew I would not return. But he lied with certainty because certainty was all he could give me in that moment. The man of science leaves with the same kind of certainty, built on foundations he knows are incomplete. I feel no victory, only distance. He came to measure strength. He measured weight and force and capacity. He documented numbers and wrote theories. But he never measured choice. He never measured will. He never measured the space between what I can do and what I choose to show. The system exhales as his wagon disappears down the road. The overseer relaxes slightly. The other workers move with less tension. The presence of outside observation has ended. Normal routine resumes. But I know something has changed. I know that their records now contain my measurements. My capacity has been documented at levels below my truth. This documentation will follow me. If I am sold, if I am transferred, if I am evaluated again, they will expect less, because their records say I am less. This is protection built from their own certainty. Later that week, heavier loads are assigned elsewhere. The strongest workers, those who demonstrated full capacity during testing, are moved to the most demanding labor, breaking ground, moving stones, hauling timber. I notice I am no longer chosen for those tasks. I am assigned to steady work instead. Moderate loads, consistent pace, tasks that match what their numbers say I can sustain. I recall elders saying, invisibility is survival. In my land, during times of danger, the most visible people were targeted first. The tallest, the strongest, the most beautiful, the most skilled. Those who survived were often those who could blend, who could appear ordinary, who could hide excellence beneath adequacy. My grandmother survived 3 raids by appearing too old to be valuable. She was not old, she was 40, but she stooped. She moved slowly. She made herself look frail. When the raiders came, they took the young and strong. They left her because she appeared used up. She lived to be many of the young and strong died in their 20s. I stay invisible now by staying adequate, not failing. Failure draws punishment, but not excelling. Excellence draws exploitation. I remain exactly in the middle, exactly where I am, neither noticed nor needed. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there. My ally and I exchange no words over the following months. Only timing. We work near each other when possible. We coordinate without speaking. We rest while appearing to work. We conserve while appearing to expend. The memory of shared labor in my village steadies me through the seasons. In my land, sustained work was always shared work. No one person carried full weight for long. We rotated. We traded positions. We relieved each other in patterns that kept everyone whole. The planters became the carriers. The carriers became the watchers. The watchers became the planters. Roles shifted so no one broke from repetition. Here there is no official rotation. You work your assigned task until you break or until you are reassigned. But my ally and I create unofficial rotation. When I see him struggling with his load, I position myself to help. When he sees me falling behind, he slows his pace to match mine so I do not stand out. We create small mercies within brutal systems. I conserve strength daily, never showing full capacity. 70% effort, 80% when watched closely. Never 90, never full. The difference accumulates over time. Weeks become months. Months become seasons. The strength I do not spend remains available. For what? I do not know yet. But my uncle taught me that preserved capacity is never wasted. Opportunity arrives unexpectedly. When it does, only those who preserve themselves can seize it. Time stretches but does not break me. A collapse occurs among those pushed too hard in the heat of summer. 3 men fall during field work in the same afternoon. One recovers quickly, one recovers slowly, one does not recover at all. I observe how blame avoids the system. The overseer says they did not drink enough water. The master says they did not pace themselves properly. The doctor says their constitutions were weak. No one says the loads were too heavy. No one says the hours were too long. No one says the heat was too dangerous. No one says the system demanded more than bodies could give. The blame lands on the collapse, on their choices, on their bodies, on their failure to endure what should not have been required. I remember warnings ignored in my past. Before I was taken, an elder warned our village that strangers were trading weapons for people. He said we should refuse all trade with the coastal merchants. He said we should prepare defenses. The village council ignored him. They said he was fearful. They said trade was necessary. They said the coastal merchants were trustworthy. The elder was right. The council was wrong. But the council never admitted error. When the raids came, they blamed bad luck, bad timing, bad spirits. Never their choice to ignore warnings. I say nothing as they remove the man who did not recover. I keep my eyes down. I return to work. I maintain my pace exactly as before. But I mark the lesson. The system will consume everything given to it. The system will never admit it. Demands too much. The system will always blame those who break for breaking. Preservation is not selfishness. Preservation is survival. I am reassigned to steady work in the barn, less watched. The reassignment comes without explanation. Just a command. You work inside now. Feed and water, morning and evening. The barn work is easier. Out of the sun, out of direct observation. Repetitive but not crushing. Their science has moved on to other questions, other measurements, other subjects. I am solved, categorized, dismissed as understood. I remain intact because I was never fully known. The white man thinks he measured me. He recorded numbers. He documented capacity. He wrote conclusions. But he measured a performance, not a person. He measured what I showed him, not what I am. Memory holds the lesson permanently now. I remember every moment of those tests. Every adjustment I made, every choice to appear less, every signal exchanged, every calculation of how much to reveal. I remember because memory is the only record I control completely. They have their ledgers, I have my memory. Their ledgers document what they believe. My memory documents what is true. In my land, this meant power. The Griots held memory. The elders held memory. When disputes arose about history or agreements or boundaries, memory was consulted. Those who controlled memory controlled truth. I control the memory of my own capacity. They control only the documentation of what I performed. These are not the same thing. At dusk one evening, I test my true strength alone, unseen. The barn is empty. The animals are fed. The doors are closed. I am alone with tools and hay bales and the privacy of completed work. I lift the hay bale. That would typically require 2 men. I hold it overhead, I walk with it, I set it down gently. I feel no strain, no shake, no exhaustion. The earth answers honestly when no one is performing. I am strong, very strong. Stronger than the records indicate. Stronger than I have shown in months. The strength is still there, preserved, protected. Ready? I restrain myself again immediately. I return the hay bale to where 2 men would have placed it together. I wipe away any sign that I moved it alone. I restore the appearance that matches their expectations. This is not deception. This is survival. The white man thinks strength revealed is strength proved. He is wrong. Strength revealed is strength spent. Strength concealed is strength preserved. I learned this from watching fire. The hottest part of the flame is not the visible part. The hottest part is the blue base that barely glows. Invisible, intense, conserved. I am that blue flame. Present but not obvious. Powerful but not displayed. Survival continues through this concealment. Months pass and the seasons turn, and I remain exactly as I appear in their records. Adequate, consistent, unremarkable. I am assigned tasks that match documented capacity. I complete them steadily. I cause no problems. I draw no attention. My ally and I continue our silent coordination. He works the fields. I work the barn. When our paths cross, we exchange no words, just slight nods. Just timing maintained. We are both intact, both preserved, both surviving inside the gap between what is demanded, what is given. Winter comes with cold. That makes all work harder. The animals need more feed. The water freezes and must be broken daily. The barn needs constant maintenance against wind that finds every crack. But I am inside, protected from the worst of the weather, protected from the worst of the observation. I watch other workers struggle through winter. I watch the strong ones, the ones who showed full capacity, struggle most. They are given the hardest tasks because their records say they can handle them. They can, but barely. And winter makes barely insufficient. Some may get sick, some get injured. Some simply wear down from sustained maximum effort. I remain steady because I have never worked at maximum. 70% effort is sustainable in summer. It is sustainable in winter. It does not break by. It does not accumulate damage. The masters see consistency and call it reliability. They do not see preservation. They do not see strategy. I do not correct their understanding. Spring arrives, and I am still here. Still working. Still intact. Still concealing capacity beneath adequacy. The man of science has not returned. His measurements are filed somewhere. His conclusions are recorded somewhere. His certainty about what I am is documented somewhere. All of it wrong. All of it incomplete. All of it missing the essential truth. I chose what he measured. I controlled what he documented. I shaped what he concluded. Not through deception, through selection. Through understanding that measurement is not discovery. Measurement is agreement about what to observe. And I never agreed to show everything. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there, warmer now with spring, smooth from years of handling, heavy with meaning that has nothing to do with physical mass. The weight reminds me of measure, of craft, of precision, of my uncle teaching me that tools reveal their makers. The white man made tools to measure me, but those tools revealed more about him than about me. They revealed his faith in numbers without context, his confidence in observation without relationship, his certainty that measurement equals knowledge. All of it wrong. I speak now because silence kept me alive then. Years have passed since those measurements. I am older now. My body is slower, but my strength is still concealed beneath the appearance of adequacy. I was never assigned to the hardest labor because their records said I could not handle it. I was never pushed to breaking because their numbers said I was already working at capacity. I survived because they never knew what I could actually do. They never measured what mattered. They measured weight. They measured force. They measured capacity in isolated moments under artificial conditions. But they never measured will. They never measured choice. They never measured the decision to appear less than I am. Strength was never the mystery they thought they were solving. The mystery was simple. When would I show full strength? Under what conditions? For what purpose? The answer is simpler. On my terms. When I choose. If I choose. Not when measured. Not when commanded. Not when documented. When it serves my survival. When it serves my purpose. When it protects what I have chosen to protect. It was my choice when to use it, and I chose to use it by not using it. I chose to show less. I chose to be underestimated. I chose to be documented as adequate, so I would be assigned adequate tasks. That choice kept me alive. That choice kept me whole. That choice preserved capacity that others spent and broke spending. The white man thinks measurement is objective. He is wrong. Measurement is relationship. Between measurer and measurable. Between observer and observed. Between the one asking questions and the one choosing which answers to give. I controlled that relationship by understanding it better than he did. He thought he was discovering my nature. I was revealing my performance. He thought he was documenting truth. I was shaping perception. He thought he was in control of the measurement. I was in control of what was measured. In my land, this meant wisdom. The elders taught that power is not always visible. Sometimes power is the ability to appear powerless. Sometimes strength is the choice to seem weak. Sometimes survival comes from being underestimated. I learned that lesson before I was taken. I practiced it during the crossing. I perfected it during those measurements, and I carry it still. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket one final time. It is still there, heavier now, with everything it represents, with memory and craft and precision and choice, with the understanding that measure is not truth, that numbers are not nature, that documentation is not discovery, with the knowledge that I am more than any record says I am, that I have always been more, that I will always be more, because they can measure my body, but they cannot measure my will. They can document my performance, but they cannot document my choice. They can record my capacity in their ledgers, but they cannot record what I choose to preserve for myself. I do not forget. I never forget. Not the tests. Not the measurements. Not the moment I realized I could control what they discovered by controlling what I revealed. Not the ally who helped me through signals. Not the seasons of preserved strength. Not the winter I survived by never having worked at my limit. Not the truth that kept me alive when full strength would have killed me. I remember all of it, and I speak it now so someone knows that measurement is not mastery, that numbers are not nature, that documentation is not truth, that the measured can choose what the measurement reveals, and that choice, that small, invisible, undocumented choices, where survival lives, in the gap between what they measure and what I am, in the space between their certainty and my reality, in the distance between their numbers and my nature. That is where I survived. That is where I remain, measured but not known, documented but not discovered, recorded but not revealed. The white man thinks he knows me because he measured me. He does not. He never did, and he never will, because I chose what he would find, and I chose to survive.